For those of you following the Charlotte Dujardin Olympics and abuse scandal, I am back with some background stories from the Telegraph newspaper. And the headline, Inside the Charlotte Dujardin Scandal and the Week That Could End Dressage for Good. The mood in Paris is bleak, with grave worries about the sport's Olympic future as it comes to terms with the revelations of the past few days. So this story is from the 28th of July, which is just before the Olympics started. Underneath the image, Charlotte Dujardin could have become Britain's most decorated female Olympian, but this week's events put paid to that. The Girl on the Dancing Horse, this was the title Charlotte Dujardin gave her memoir, and it was a reputation that preceded her everywhere she went. When she performed at one 2015 exhibition in Las Vegas on Vallegro, the Dutch warmblood with whom she elevated dressage to its highest artistic expression, newly converted fans queued out of the door for her autograph. In less than a week, that luminous reputation has been torched. And today, she might just be the girl who brings down her sport. So, yes, reflecting that pure dressage may be dropped from the Olympics because of the backlash from the public about how apparently cruel this can be for the competing horses. While equestrianism is confirmed for the Los Angeles Olympics in 2028, so the next Olympics, there are grave doubts as to whether dressage will form part of its programme. And yeah, there are very grave doubts. This is a constituency under mounting pressure to sustain the social licence to use horses for sport. And the video of Dujardin whipping one 24 times in 1 minute marks a grave setback for that cause. For those of you who may not be aware, social licence is defined as permission from the public or approval or even indifference from the public to continue an activity. And for years, we've had a big question mark over racing. As we've seen, Australia banned some equestrian sports and greyhound racing. So the industry needs to clean up its act and not be complacent about the public's feelings about horses in sport. Reactions to the animal abuse in an Olympic context are visceral and immediate. Well, yes, they are, because the Olympics stands for fairness and equality, and they've been upholding that for over 100 years. So unethical equestrian sport is looking to be very out of place in a modern Olympics and what it stands for. In August 2021, Kim Reisner, a German coach in modern pentathlon, was filmed punching a horse in Tokyo. 3 months later, the sport's governing body ruled that horse riding should no longer be one of its 5 disciplines. So here it is interesting to note that the International Olympic Committee are above the FEI, and what they say goes and is final and non-negotiable. The downfall of Dujardin has unleashed an even fiercer backlash. Even her longtime mentor, Carl Hester, the British team captain, has co-signed a letter condemning her. She was meant to be on a quest here at the Palace of Versailles, a suitably opulent setting for a sport of billionaires, to become the most decorated British female Olympian in history. Instead, the very mention of her name draws a shudder from peers and public alike, and it does. In the rain-lashed grounds, Laura Collett, a reigning Olympic champion in team eventing, said of the leaked video, "It is devastating for the whole horse world." It is, because there's a question mark over everybody's heads now. Everybody who trains a horse and rides a horse for competition. That view was echoed in the stands. I just think the vast majority of people like us, amateur riders, would just never do anything like that, said Sam Fletcher from Wiltshire. We look after our horses better than we do our kids. I've never seen a horse being whipped like that. No. And then there's questions about the leak being malicious because of the timing. Within the sport, it is the timing of the leak which suggests malice rather than a genuine fear for animal welfare that has prompted most anger. And personally, I say the timing doesn't matter when you're whistleblowing. It's the essence of the story, the behaviour, the activity that is what's important here. And questioning the timing of it, or whether it's malicious or not, just deflects from the important story, which is the gravity of the behaviour of the person carrying out the abuse. In taking out Dujardin, the whistleblower, supposedly acting with the sport's best interests at heart, may have set fire to its Olympic existence. All the evidence points to the conclusion that it is the work of someone working on the inside. So they're adding intrigue to this, and I'm sure the story will come out eventually. The whistleblower's lawyer claims she has been agonising since 2022 about going public. She was warned to keep quiet by senior people in English equestrianism last year, her lawyer claims. Others at top levels in the sport dispute these events and even the timeline. One insider tells Telegraph Sport that the whistleblower does not even have her dates right, and the video was shot in July 2020. Senior figures close to the Team GB camp, which outwardly condemns the video, privately describe the attack as malicious. Well, at face value, that's what it looks like. Who then could the whistleblower be? Life behind the scenes for the darling of the sport has not all been smooth sailing in recent months. 7 months ago, Dujardin decided to sever business ties with Abby Newell, chief executive of the Equestrian Management Agency. Multiple sources describe lingering tensions between the pair, but Newell categorically denies being the whistleblower. Of course not, she told Telegraph Sport when asked whether she had played a role in bringing the footage to light. And of course, because we don't know who the whistleblower is, there's question marks on a number of people's heads there too. Another one-time associate of Dujardin is dressage trainer Alicia Dickinson, who also denies leaking the footage, but who claims Dujardin has many enemies. Our business relationship ended after the lesson shown in the video, she said, indicating she was aware of concerns. And of course, as I understand it, and as it's been reported, she was there when this incident took place, but she did not film it, and she is not the whistleblower. It is a tantalizing claim by Dickinson, this statement that Dujardin has enemies, and it is not one made in isolation. Several sources within the sport paint her as a diva who has alienated many with a high-handed attitude. But is such a portrayal accurate or the product of resentment? Dujardin, after all, is not a woman hewn from classic equestrian stock. She was born in Enfield and trained under her mother's car headlamps in a North London sand arena. The fact that she would go on to dominate such an eye-wateringly expensive sport as dressage may have made her a target in a world known for its cliques. Well, I would take issue with that because classic equestrian stock is the general horse-owning public who would themselves survive on baked beans on toast to give their horses what they need. And dressage is only an expensive sport because the horses can be expensive. But to compete a horse in dressage at the higher levels, if you've bred the horse yourself or acquired a young horse, you have to be a good trainer and rider. So it's not just about the money. So then they have a timeline of events that led to the Olympic ban. In August 2021, Dujardin wins 2 bronzes at the Tokyo 2020 Games. And I must point out that was not with Vallegro. She had another young horse. And she had previously won team and individual gold medals at the London 2012 Games on Vallegro, and the pair went on to win individual gold and team silver at Rio Games. In 2022, Dujardin is filmed beating a horse more than 24 times in 1 minute, like an elephant in the circus, according to whistleblower's lawyer Stephen Wensing. Explaining the circumstances of the allegation, he adds that his client was a sponsor of a 19-year-old woman who had been having a lesson with Dujardin in Gloucestershire. Dujardin said to the student, "Your horse must lift up the legs more in the canter," the lawyer claims. She took the long whip and she was beating the horse more than 24 times in 1 minute, and really hard, really harsh, really tough. Dujardin later claimed the footage is from 2020, so she remembers it well. 2023, the whistleblower initially concluded she had no right to question Dujardin's methods, given her Olympic pedigree, but a year later she expresses concerns privately to figures in English equestrianism. They urge her not to go public. My client asked around and was warned against speaking out in the UK. So yeah, she didn't wait, and whistleblowers do try to do the right thing from the beginning, but they are often not heard. And yeah, that can bring some resentment. So it goes from there. The whistleblower's concerns deepen as 2-time Olympic champion Sir Mark Todd separately received a 4-month ban after repeatedly striking a horse. You may remember this incident circulating on social media, where, again, on a lesson involving someone else's horse, not their own, this horse is coerced with a long branch to jump some water. June the 26th, 2024, the British Olympic Association selects Dujardin for Paris, saying the squad of 4 representing dressage offers a mix of experience and young talent, with Carl Hester set to compete in his 7th Games, while his protégée, Charlotte Dujardin, will be hoping to become Britain's most decorated female Olympian. So you may or may not know that Charlotte Dujardin worked very closely with Carl Hester in terms of training in his yard with him before branching out on her own, although I'm not sure when. July 23rd, 2024, Dujardin sends shockwaves through Team GB by standing down from the Olympics, saying she was deeply ashamed after making an error of judgment 24 times. She claims the video had been taken 4 years ago rather than 2. Well, that just deflects from the story. It was still her delivering the abuse. Within 2 hours of the statement, she was formally banned from the Games and provisionally suspended for 6 months. And as I stated in my last video, if this was a minor rule break, it would be a 3-month ban. But she has a provisional 6-month ban, because presumably this is seen by the FEI to be more serious. And in the meantime, they are making their investigation. Equestrian's governing body, the FEI, confirmed it had footage showing her engaging in conduct contrary to the principles of horse welfare during a training session conducted at Ms. Dujardin's private stable. I'm glad that's been cleared up, because I wasn't sure if this was at the rider's yard. Travelling reserve Becky Moody will take Dujardin's place with Jagerbom. And having watched her performance since, it's very pleasing indeed. July 20th, 2024, the whistleblower contacts Wensing, a Dutch lawyer specializing in equine law. She eventually made a decision to let me admit the complaint to the FEI, who Wensing says took this immediately, very seriously, after he sent the video to the authority on the following Monday, July the 22nd. So continuing with the story. Now she has been humiliated in the most brutal fashion, which is what the video portrays for the horse and the rider. Transformed from poster girl to persona non grata in the space of just 5 days. Tom McEwen, whose father is a vet, described a sense of horror at the sport's reputational damage, inviting reporters to visit his yard to see how well his horses were looked after. Well, this isn't about looking after horses. She's not accused of starving them or depriving them. She's accused by the public of physically abusing the horse, for which she has admitted to being the person in the video. And Tom McEwen is an event rider on the Olympic team. It was a massive shock to the equestrian world, he said, but it's really important for us to put a shining light on our amazing sport. The trouble is that most of equestrian's abuse scandals have originated not from pre-prepared open days, but from unguarded moments. Whenever journalists were invited to Hester's yard in Gloucestershire, where Dujardin trained, she could demonstrate how the horses received a level of love and luxury tantamount to an equine spa. Then that video definitively broke the spell, casting a far less flattering light on how flawlessness in dressage could be attained. Prognosis for dressage looks bleak. If the FEI thought the Dujardin case was a grim aberration, events have since proved otherwise. Max Kuhner, a medal contender for Austria in show jumping, is the subject of criminal proceedings in Germany for allegedly hitting his horse's legs with a bar to make it jump higher. Carlos Parro, a Brazilian eventer, has been formally cautioned for potentially causing unnecessary discomfort to a horse through the use of hyperflexion, or rollcure, a banned practice where the horse's neck is flexed to such an extreme that its tongue can turn blue. The FEI investigation into Dujardin is likely to be painful and prolonged. The 4-year gap between the incident happening and going public at least rules out the possibility of the RSPCA launching any criminal action against Dujardin. That comes as a shock to me. The Animal Welfare Act 2006 has a time limit stipulation that a magistrate's court can only try information relating to an offence before the end of the period of 3 years, beginning with the date of the commission of the offence. I see. Okay, so another level of intrigue here, because the lawyer has stated that the video is 2.5 years old, and Charlotte Dujardin is stating that the video is 4 years old. If it is 4 years old, then she's off the hook from criminal prosecution from the RSPCA, as I read it here. But the broader prognosis for the sport looks bleak. Equestrianism is already in a fight for its Olympic existence, struggling to explain how dressage techniques dating back to the mid-16th century have any place in a spectacle desperate to appeal to a younger demographic. Well, yeah, that is about the long and the short of it. Pure dressage and the training of it and how the horses look when they're competing, and very few look very comfortable or willing to compete. They don't look like they're enjoying it. While an archaic image is one problem, suggestions of equine abuse threaten an existential crisis. Does dressage even deserve to survive in 2028 if it is shown to have a dark heart? Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. It is one troubling question among many for the sport to contemplate after a truly shattering week. And yeah, many have said that this form of abuse is widespread in elite dressage training, suggesting that you have to use coercive methods for the horse to perform in that way. Although my view is that the equipment that the riders, owners, trainers are using, i.e. double bridles, which is 2 bits in the horse's mouth, one fairly harsh. Well, it's the hands that are harsh, not so much the bits. And then the spurs, and then the whips. So why do you need all that to encourage a horse to dance? Well, there are many riders who do not use those methods or harsh items of equipment to produce a happy, athletic horse. But, for example, they have to use a bit, it's in the rules, to compete at the higher levels. A statement from the FEI to Telegraph Sport reiterated its commitment to improving horse welfare. For the first time ever, a horse welfare coordinator has been appointed for the Olympic and Paralympic Games. Dr. Richard Cord, president of the French League for the Protection of the Horse, is one of the most experienced equine veterinarians globally and serves as the French national head veterinarian. He will work in an advisory and supportive capacity, liaising directly with on-site FEI officials to ensure that equine well-being is prioritised at all times. And yes, as I understand it, one horse was eliminated for blood on the tongue, which wouldn't be all that unusual because that's a rule, it's upheld, there's no question about that. It can't be covered up, or rather the appearance of blood in the mouth can't be covered up, or from the region of the spurs. And also there was an incident where the dressage horses were allowed to view and bring their horses into the Olympic arena, ridden, and one rider was riding their horse in hyperflexion and they were cautioned and given a yellow card. So yes, things are happening, rules are being upheld, protection of the horse is being monitored. Additionally, there has been a significant shift in the conversation surrounding horse welfare at the Paris Olympic Games. We have communicated with the stewards, the ground jury, and the FEI to emphasise the importance of proper bridle fitting and adjustments. This message has been delivered by our team strongly, clearly, and in detail. And this brings up another problem, that the nosebands of the bridles are being over tightened, again, for control of the horse, of the expressive athletic horse, which may be difficult for many riders, even at elite levels, to actually ride. In other words, the degree of athleticism required for the highest level of competition means that that movement is almost impossible to sit to and direct by the riders. We understand that words carry weight only when they are supported by meaningful action. We are fully aware of the importance of ensuring our commitments are not just rhetoric, but are followed by decisive and necessary action to support equine welfare. While we acknowledge that it may not always be possible to satisfy everyone, we are confident that the action plan provides us with a clear framework to make informed and thoughtful decisions, and that equestrian will be part of the Olympic story for many more Olympics to come. Well, I think it's too little too late. I really believe that it will disappear, because I'm not sure it could be cleaned up at this stage in time for social license to do a U-turn. And also, what you have to consider here is that there are countries where horse breeding is a major lucrative export. Britain is no longer renowned for their horse breeding, although we could say that our ponies are the exception there. They need to protect their horse breeding industry. So let's take a look at what Carl Hester has to say. So from the Independent newspaper, Carl Hester urges second chance for Charlotte Dujardin after horse whipping scandal. Well, that's a bit disappointing. Dujardin withdrew from the Paris Olympics after video of her repeatedly whipping a horse emerged, but her mentor, Hester, who condemned her actions in the clip, believes she deserves forgiveness. Why? And he says she deserves a second chance from the British public as she battles to save her career. Hester, 57, gave Dujardin a job at his yard in 2007 and has been her key mentor on a journey which led to 6 Olympic medals. Her chances of adding to that tally at Paris 2024 and becoming Britain's most decorated female Olympian were dashed when a video was released of her whipping a horse in training, leading to the 39-year-old's withdrawal on the eve of the Games. Hester condemned her actions in the clip and even signed a letter to that effect, but insists the incident was out of character. The video was a huge shock to me, and it's not from my property, said the 57-year-old. That video is fairly obvious and no one will support that. You can't. But over 17 years of knowing Charlotte, I have not seen that. That is not her. I haven't seen her. I know things are very difficult, but she is surrounded by people trying to help her. She accepts what she did, and I'm glad she's done that. This is 4 years ago. People do make mistakes. Well, it's not difficult to find out how old the film is, because presumably it would be date stamped in its digital form. What do we do? Never forgive people? It's going to be a long road and a lesson for everybody in the horse world. We have to put the horses first and showcase them. Well, this isn't about Charlotte's forgiveness, although I completely understand, because Carl Hester was very close to her for many years, but this is about making sure that this doesn't happen again, or if it is happening on a wide scale, it's stopped. And the way to do that is to remove the rewards for that behaviour, and also removing the coercive equipment that is allowed or permitted to be used. Hester is appearing at his 7th Olympics, equalling Nick Skelton's British record, but has seen his build-up overshadowed by the scandal which has embroiled the sport. I mean, yes, because Charlotte was all but guaranteed a medal in these games. The veteran is seen as the grandfather of dressage, but its future on the Olympic programme has been thrown into question amid the furore. In the UK, you don't see that sort of video. I've never seen it, he said. We are all in shock. We are making an effort to show how much we love our horses and how we train them. If this is out there, we know it has to change. I have an open yard at home where everyone is welcome to visit our daily training. I have pride in the fact that our yard shows horse welfare to be at its highest. We have to show the positives of our sport. Well, you know, I feel very empathic towards Carl Hester, because when this story broke, And of those who knew the association between Charlotte and Carl, they were assuming that this training method was learned from him. But as I said earlier, she did branch off on her own, but I'm not sure when. The three-time Olympic medalist tried to shut out the noise on Tuesday as he took to the Versailles stage on board Fame, who he describes as like a pet. Hester looks well placed to qualify for the individual final on Sunday and hopes to bid for a fourth successive team medal earlier in the weekend alongside Lottie Fry and Becky Moody, the 11th hour replacement for Dujardin. And I will be reviewing, analysing those performances in another video shortly. It has been a difficult time, he said. I went down the centre line, relaxed and started to enjoy the ride. And I thought, I've got to think about the team now. That's what I'm here for. Becky has been thrown into this, her first team, and it's an Olympic team. She will really need our support around her, which she has. Yeah, and I have to say, Becky Moody rode a fabulous test and really brought out the best in her horse. Lottie is a great fighter for the team and has one of the best horses in the competition. We are certainly in there fighting. Back soon.